The grand hall of the Xyrathi Empire had not seen silence like this in decades. The vaulted crystalline ceiling shimmered with the light of 7 moons, and yet the court beneath it stood frozen. Nobles, guards, servants, all breathless as if time itself had paused. At the far end of the hall, upon a throne carved from living starlight, sat Queen of Xyrathis, ruler of half the known galaxy. Her silver skin gleamed like liquid mercury, her eyes reflecting galaxies. And yet, for all her immortal poise, her hands trembled slightly on the arms of her throne. Because the great doors of the palace had just opened. And standing there, silhouetted against the light of the moons, was her daughter, Princess Serana. The princess who had vanished 12 years ago during the Solar Ascension War. The princess whose body had never been recovered. The princess whose disappearance had nearly plunged the galaxy into ruin. She was alive. But she was not alone. At her side stood 2 small children, a boy and a girl, each holding one of her hands. Their hair was brown, their eyes a deep hazel, and their skin unmistakably human. A ripple of disbelief spread through the hall. Humans. Here. In the royal court of the Xyrathi Empire. The queen rose slowly, the weight of the moment pressing down on her like gravity magnified 100-fold. "Serana," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Is it truly you?" The princess stepped forward. Her once regal armor had been replaced by worn traveler's garb, patched and mended countless times. Scars ran along her neck and arms, signs of battles fought far from the comfort of royal protection. "It's me, mother," she said softly. "I came home." Her voice cracked at the last word. The queen's composure faltered, and she descended the steps of her throne. The guards made no move to stop her. Even the high lords, normally stone-faced, lowered their gazes in reverence. But all eyes eventually drifted to the children, small, wide-eyed, clutching their mother's hands. The older of the 2, a boy of perhaps 8, stared back at the gathered aliens without fear. The little girl, barely 5, pressed against her mother's side, whispering something in English too soft to catch. "Mother," Serana said, voice steadying, "I need you to meet your grandchildren." The queen stopped mid-step. For the briefest moment, her mind refused to process the words. Then slowly, her gaze turned to the 2 small humans. Her grandchildren. The lost years. The war had been chaos. 12 years ago, Serana's escort ship was ambushed near the Orion Rift. Records said she'd been captured by human raiders, primitive remnants of a war-torn species barely climbing back from self-inflicted ruin. The Empire had written them off as savages, resourceful but doomed, a species destined to destroy themselves. Yet here stood Serana, alive, and with children of that very species. The court buzzed with restrained whispers. The queen, however, said nothing. Instead, she gestured for her daughter to follow. They walked through the quiet corridors of the palace, the hum of bioluminescent veins pulsing through the walls. Finally, in a private chamber overlooking the moonlit city, the queen turned to face her daughter. "Explain," she said. Not coldly, but with a mother's aching need to understand. Serana exhaled, looking out at the lights below. "When the ambush happened, my shuttle crashed on a planet called Earth," she began. "Their atmosphere nearly killed me. My life systems failed within hours." She paused, glancing down at her children, who had curled up near the balcony door. The boy had taken out a small datapad and was sketching, the girl humming softly beside him. "They found me," Serana continued. "Humans. A small group of settlers in a place they called Alaska. They didn't know who I was. To them, I was just a wounded traveler from the stars." The queen's eyes narrowed. "And they helped you?" Serana nodded. "They saved me. They had nothing, Mother. Their planet was fractured by war, divided by borders, but they still gave me shelter. They risked their lives to hide me when others came looking. She paused, her gaze softening. And one of them, Eli, he became my protector. My partner. The Queen's voice grew sharp. You bonded with a human. Serana met her gaze without flinching. Yes. The silence between them was almost unbearable. The bloodline of two worlds. The Queen turned away, pacing slowly. You were meant to unite the noble houses, Serana. Not. She stopped herself, glancing at the children. Not entangle our bloodline with a species barely out of its cradle. Serana's expression hardened. Mother, humanity isn't what you think. They're not primitive, they're resilient. They fight for each other even when everything falls apart. Ahil. They love without reason. The Queen's voice was cold. They destroyed their own world. Serana stepped closer. And then rebuilt it. That's what makes them extraordinary. The Queen didn't answer. Her gaze fell once more on the children. The boy had built a small model from scraps of crystal he'd found on the table, a replica of the palace spires, perfectly balanced despite the crude materials. His sister laughed as he made it fly through the air, making whooshing noises. There was something in their eyes. A spark she recognized. The same unyielding determination her daughter once had. But there was more. Something human. Quiet strength. The return. By dawn, word had spread across the empire. The missing princess had returned, with human offspring. The Senate demanded answers. Some called for a trial. Others whispered of prophecy, of ancient bonds between worlds. Serana stood before the High Council that afternoon. Her children watched over by guards at the back. This cannot be allowed, hissed Lord Velra, his tentacled form coiling in disgust. Humans are unpredictable, dangerous. Their wars nearly wiped out their own biosphere. And yet, Serana replied calmly, they endured. The chamber murmured. Velra's voice rose, sharp as a blade. You taint the royal bloodline with their chaos. At that, Serana's eyes flashed. You call it chaos. I call it hope. The Queen remained silent throughout. Her daughter's defiance was familiar, almost nostalgic. But she also saw what few others could. The fire that once made the Xyrathi an unstoppable force had dimmed over centuries of peace and politics. Humanity burned with that same flame now. The council's debate raged for hours. When it ended, the decision fell, as always, to the Queen. The trial of blood. Tradition demanded proof of worth. If the children were to be recognized as heirs of the royal line, they would face the trial of blood. An ancient right to test strength, intellect and will. No one under 10 had ever faced it. Serana protested. The Queen did not relent. They will not be harmed, Alarie promised quietly. But they must be seen for what they are, not just to the court but to the people. When the day came, the great arena was filled with thousands. Holodrones hovered in the air, transmitting the event across star systems. The boy, Kalen, and the girl, Mira, stood hand in hand before the elders. Kalen's expression was calm, almost eerily so for his age. Mira clung to his arm, eyes wide. The first test was of mind. The children faced a puzzle of shifting geometric illusions, impossible to predict, designed to trap lesser minds in recursive thought loops. Kalen solved it in minutes. When asked how, he shrugged. It looked like something my mom used to draw in the sand. The audience murmured. The elders exchanged uneasy looks. The second trial was of spirit. A neural illusion designed to exploit one's greatest fears. Mira stepped forward first. Moments later she screamed and then stopped. She looked around confused. "I wasn't scared anymore," she said simply. "Because my brother told me I wasn't alone." Even the Queen's stoic mask cracked then. The final trial was of will. The children stood against simulated stormwinds, designed to push even trained soldiers to their knees. Kalen lifted his sister, shielding her. Together they leaned forward step by step, refusing to fall. When it was done, they collapsed together, laughing breathlessly. And the crowd, aliens of every species, rose to their feet and cheered. The truth of humanity. That night, as the moons rose, the Queen visited her daughter once more. "They surprised even me," she admitted quietly. Serana smiled faintly. "They're human." The Queen's gaze softened. "And Xyrathi?" "Yes," Serana said. "Both." Uri looked out at the horizon. "Do you know what the Council fears most? It's not humanity's violence, or their unpredictability. It's that they remind us of who we once were, before we grew comfortable, before we forgot what it meant to fight for something worth losing." Serana reached out, resting a hand over her mother's. "Then maybe it's time we remembered." The Queen turned to face her, and for the first time in 12 years she smiled, not as a ruler but as a mother. The coronation. Weeks later, the royal plaza overflowed with millions. The Queen stood before them, her voice echoing through the air. "Today we welcome not just the return of my daughter, but the beginning of a new era. The blood of two worlds flows in these children. They are proof that strength comes not from purity, but from unity." She turned to Kalen and Mira. "You are heirs of two legacies, one born of starlight, the other forged in struggle. Let the galaxy see what humanity can be, when given a chance." The crowd roared as the Queen raised her arms. For the first time in the Empire's long history, humans were no longer outsiders. They were part of the royal line. Prologue: the message. Years later, as Kalen trained with the Royal Guard and Mira studied the sciences, a transmission reached Earth. It came from Xyrathis itself, a holographic message bearing the royal seal. A young boy appeared in the projection, his voice calm and sure. "My name is Kalen Alarie, son of Serana, grandson of the Queen. My mother told me stories of you, of the humans who helped her when she was lost. I want you to know, you were never forgotten." He paused, eyes bright with that unmistakable human spark. "The galaxy once feared humanity. Now it looks to you for hope. Don't ever stop being what you are. Stubborn, brave, impossible. That's what makes you us." The signal ended. And somewhere, on the blue planet that had once been ignored by the stars, millions of humans looked up that night with tears in their eyes, knowing their kind had finally found its place among the stars.